here we go. Hello, and welcome to The Daily Pouch, the Neighbours rerun of podcast that aims to take a not-so-serious look at the day in Australian news and politics. I am Greg Savage.
And I'm Jake Farr-wharton. On today's show, we ask how Pauline Hanson's face ended up on a giant cheque and why New South Wales Nationals MP Leslie Williams has checked out.
Funny. And our guest tonight is none other than host of the internationally renowned Aussie English podcast, Pete Smissen. Stick around as we invite him into the comfort of the pouch and ask him to display his general knowledge about Australia.
It's an uncomfortable position, I think, for me in terms of politics. Everything else is fine.
All right, so then there'll be some sort of song. Doesn't
Is that all right?
Keep going.
Now, Jake, this is your bit. Off you go. You just introduce it as some sort of topic, as some sort of segment.
Yes, welcome to the daily wrap-up. Greg, I see you've got the first news story. Do you want to impart some news?
Some news knowledge. I sure do. Yeah. We got 4 headlines for you today. One of the top ones, job seekers to lose up to $300 per fortnight from this week as the government changes supplement. On Friday, the government will cut back the coronavirus supplement for job seeker recipients. Other changes are on the way too. Over to you, Jake.
Quote, you preyed on his kindness. A woman who fatally poisoned her partner has been jailed for 25 years. The New South Wales woman, Wendy Sue Dent, will spend at least 25 years behind bars for murdering her partner, David Lawrence, with prescription medication, with an Adelaide judge saying that she was motivated by greed.
Not greed. Not greed. Single-digit territory would provoke some thought about Victoria's restrictions roadmap, Coatsworth says, as Victoria records just 11 new coronavirus cases. Woo! Australia's Deputy Chief Medical Officer Nick Coatsworth says a trend into single digits would likely prompt the Victorian government to re-examine the state's restrictions roadmap.
And coronavirus cases are down in Victoria, well, everywhere as well, but so is testing. Well, also all around Australia. Could that delay reopening is a great question. Victoria has recorded 11 new COVID-19 cases today, its lowest number in more than 3 months. But as Donald Trump says, that's because we're not testing that much. You only find the test when you're testing. But with just 7,164 tests returned yesterday, is that enough to be confident about the data? Spoiler alert, maybe.
Maybe. All right, well, before we complete our shallow wade into some of the more notable news headlines from the day, let's introduce tonight's guest. Tonight we have Pete Smissen from the highly successful, internationally renowned and highly internationally successfully renowned podcast, the Aussie the Aussie English podcast. Pete, how are you?
I'm good. You pretty much just stole my intro.
Pete, what do people know you from?
That clip from now on, I'll just put that right at the front of the show.
Oh, I love it.
Thanks, Greg.
Well, what's happening in your world at the moment?
Oh, man. Lockdown. We finally, I think it was, when would it have been? Last
You're
Wednesday?
in regional Victoria, aren't you?
Yeah, but we copped stage 3. So stage 4 was Melbourne, stage 3 was regional, so we could go out more than 5 kilometres. Still had to wear masks, couldn't go to people's houses, could catch up with one person at a time outside the house as long as you were social distancing, both with masks, and it wasn't at either of your houses. So The other day, the rules got lax, and we finally had my parents come over for the first time in probably, 1.5 months, 2 months?
Wow.
For
Which
dinner.
is controversial for you because, of course, they live down the road.
They live about 100 metres away.
Close, yeah.
See him around, but you can't talk to him.
Hey, Dad.
So how's the podcasting world going through coronavirus? Your podcast was already pretty successful. What about now? What's the vibe out there in podcasty world?
I don't know. I think it's growing, but I think I'm pumping a lot of money into advertising, so I think that probably helps. To be honest.
Hang on, let me jot that down. Advertising works. Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's hard to separate those two things. And I had people asking me, how's the business going? And I'm like, well, it's still chugging along, but I'm getting a lot of emails saying, yeah, I've signed up because now I have nothing to do and I'm at home. And then I have someone send me an email straight after that saying, I've got to cancel because I don't have a job and I can't afford to pay for this. So I think it's sort of balanced out.
Swings and roundabouts, as they say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hasn't taken just yet.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. I think it's good that there's these sorts of, like we sort of spoke off air a little bit about the fact that there's probably a few relics that are going to be left over after coronavirus, in terms of sort of hygiene and all those sorts of things. But we also know that things like that companies like Amazon or Apple, obviously related to podcasts as well, have been booming during the coronavirus. So
I should have put money in those shares.
Well,
Boom,
20
right?
years ago, but
Yeah. Oh, well, you'll know the next time there's a pandemic what to quickly shift your shares over to whatever it is that's going.
I'm wondering how many people were just like, because what do they say? In any crisis, there's a way to make money, right? So you wondered how many people were just like in the money business world were like, oh yeah, whatever, here we go, boom, let's invest in face masks.
Yeah. Well, also like Zip Pay and what's the other one? The other pay thing that you can do without a credit check. Afterpay. Like they've just gone great guns. They're just booming.
Airbnb, I think, is bent over a barrel at the moment too, because they.
Well, you'd imagine so, because no one can leave their house.
Yeah, well, they can't have anyone else come over, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. You can't go to somebody else's house, which I suppose that is the core operating model for Airbnb.
But it's pretty crazy, right? With these businesses having their pants caught down like that. I don't know what Uber's been up to either, because I imagine at least locally here, you haven't been able to just call an Uber and get in the same car as someone else.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, that's.
Uber's fine up in Queensland. You still hop in the car and hear about the guy's. He's a struggling songwriter, and he wants to play you his CD on the 3-minute journey into. He's recording on a CD, guys. He's recording on a CD.
That's okay. What I would be more than happy to listen to that. That's support indie artists all the way. And I saw it on the weekend. Qantas announced that they have a flight. The flight to nowhere, but it sort of takes you around Australia. Pretty cool. You get to see Uluru, you get to see Great Barrier Reef, and you fly back home to Sydney. Maybe Ubers could do the same thing around their neighbourhoods,
Yeah.
Imagine that. Who's lashing out on that? I think I saw something about that. Someone sent me one about Antarctica recently, that you can go to Antarctica. I was like, oh, wow, you can fly there and it lands? And they're like, no. Like, how much? $7,000. No.
Yeah, that's a long-standing thing. New Zealand had that. Unfortunately, didn't end so well.
Yeah. All right.
Just up another 10 and then go there by boat.
All right, Jake, let's get into the shallow way, gentlemen. Let's get into a couple of hard-hitting stories that happened today in Australia. Jake, something interesting. That Labor wants Pauline Hanson investigated over the $23 million, I presume it's $23 million, Rockhampton Stadium novelty check. Now, we did speak about this on the show yesterday. It feels like a lifetime ago, Jake. A lifetime ago in news cycles.
It absolutely was. I mean, that's what one day is like in the world of podcasting.
So tell us give us an update, because we always promise our listeners updates and we never give it to them. We don't tell them that we're never actually going to give them.
Look, it's a very interesting case, and as we said when we last spoke about this case, it seemed very wonky that Pauline Hanson, who had absolutely nothing to do with the fundraising for the Rockhampton Stadium, really should not have whatsoever been having her face on a novelty check. She did present the $23 million novelty check to the owners of the stadium, or the runners of the stadium, last week. So Labor has written to the Auditor General asking that department to investigate how Pauline Hanson came to use a novelty check with her face on it to announce this $23 million taxpayer-funded federal grant to build a stadium in Rockhampton. It stinks of, bit of pork barreling, and it also stinks of exactly what was it? Oh, what was Alexander Downer's daughter, who did this exact same thing in the lead up to the last federal election?
On a check.
Up with a nice big, it was a big novelty check. Took it to her local shooters association and said, "If you elect me, I will ensure that you get money," even though they were already getting the money because they were part of the sports grant thing anyway. But to Senator Murray Watt from Federal Labor, she said it is, quote, completely inappropriate for Senator Hanson to treat taxpayers' money as if it were her own and to mislead Australians about the true source of these funds. Quote, taxpayers' money should not be treated as campaign contributions to, or as gifts from, individual politicians, or indeed from political parties. Over to you, Greg.
He's pretty clever.
Yeah, it is pretty
I mean,
clever.
I saw that. I read that article and I was just like, damn, like that's sneaky. That's
Well,
really
it's
sneaky.
so sneaky because what it is they are essentially trying to boost One Nation and essentially they Pauline Hanson teamed up with the local federal Liberal National Party member. So they're doing this to boost One Nation and the Liberal National Party ahead of the Queensland state election next month.
Yeah,
Xenophobes can be generous. It's all good.
Yeah. It's just highly inappropriate.
But it sort of takes a leaf from Donald Trump's book, doesn't it? In the sense that once it's out there, it doesn't matter. Like once it's out there, journalists can spend and politicians can spend all day refuting what actually happened and saying this is not true. But it doesn't matter. It's out there.
Fake news.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I just noticed I have a dirty great stain on my shirt. You gentlemen could have told me that.
What do you think exactly happened? So she heard about this news, the money getting given, this $23 million to make a stadium, and then she's rushed out. She's found the closest office works. Just said, I need you to smack together a large check with my face on the front of it. Look, here's one I prepared earlier. Can you print this out for me on cardboard?
I'll tell you what happened. Pauline said something to the order, called the local member and said, I really don't want, any other political party other than One Nation or the Liberal National Party to be elected in this local seat. So I reckon if we get together and we spend a bit of cash on a little bit of advertising, all it's going to take is a bit of a novelty check. And we'll put my face on it because your face is ugly.
That was the best bit, right? That it was printed on there in colour.
Yeah.
I think
they like it too.
I reckon what happened is she went to pick up her beer cozies that she was gonna send out. You know, the ones that she sent out to the Housing Commission towers recently. I reckon she's gone to pick those up. And then she said, you know what? They've said, look, a 10% discount if you get a giant novelty check. She's gone ripper. And then she's just done that. I think she actually thinks, from what I read on the weekend, she actually thinks that she had a hand in this. She actually thinks that her lobbying actually contributed to this stadium going ahead. So what are they going to play in Rockhampton?
Well, it's rugby,
man.
Yeah, right.
We moved up there.
Is that?
Well, yeah,
I took it all. The grand final, everything.
At the moment, but when the AFL players go back, we will continue to not know anything about AFL.
Yeah, Rockhampton will be the the rugby island.
Yes.
What man? We need a team from Cairns called the Cairns Crocs.
Yeah.
I think that was the Townsville basketball team. Was the Crocs?
It was, yeah.
They went under. All right.
Good story.
All right. Yeah. Always end on a happy note. Okay. Now, Jake, this comes from our something learned section. So that was our something exciting section. This is our something learned section. This is the news that the New South Wales national leadership is tense. And that the New South Wales Nationals MP, Leslie Williams, defected. Like she resigned yesterday from the National Party, and she's defecting today or something like that. Like this is breaking news, Jake.
It is. Well,
I wasn't expecting to be so breaking.
Exactly. Well, as you say, the political tensions were indeed tense.
Yes.
Political
tensions are tense.
The Nationals MP Leslie Williams decided that she'd release a little bit of the pressure by removing herself from the situation.
Who is she?
So she is a former Nationals MP and now a New South Wales LNP representative. So she'll probably sit on the backbench somewhere. But essentially, it's all around the political tensions that have been there for the last several months. So you may recall 2 months ago there was the by-election for that previously Labor held seat. John Barilaro put his hand up immediately, said, I'm going straight for this seat. There was a Liberal National Party individual who put themselves forward, and John Barilaro started sledging the dude until he decided there was no way I'm going to run in this seat. This is ridiculous. It's toxic. I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah. And then that situation resolved itself because essentially the whole thing imploded and Labor won. And we had last week the Nationals. It was the Nationals leader. It was John Barilaro who said we are going to essentially no longer sit in in a coalition with the Liberal National Party. We're going to remove the Nationals from the Liberal National Party,
Yes.
and we'll sit on the crossbench, and we won't approve any of your freaking legislation.
Well, this is all about koalas, yeah? This is all about koalas.
Well, I mean, look, the pretext was all, the subtext was all about koalas, but we all know it was about John Barilaro wanting to be front and center in an important news story while the Premier Gladys Berejiklian was front and center of all things coronavirus and all things New South Wales recovery.
You're not suggesting that this was about ego?
No, I am. Well, actually, I am. Yeah.
Are you?
Didn't he tap out pretty much straight away?
So,
He's like, I'm taking time off.
Yeah.
This is an interesting thing, yeah. So on Friday, he did announce that he was taking time off for mental health, which it's fantastic. And as Greg and I were remarking, it's always great and positive to hear when a national political leader, let alone just anybody in the public eye, draws attention to mental health and taking care of your mental health. It's just the series of things that have led up to this. It's so unfortunate that it had to happen during a time where, all eyes should be on coronavirus, all eyes should be on recovery, all eyes should be, in lockstep together, working together to, and all, it's so ridiculous that it was against koalas.
Yeah, and like I've mentioned on the show as well, like a bit of this has to do with the friendly Geordies that you introduced me to, Pete. So thanks for that. That he's been, I mean, look, long story short, he's been
ruthless.
He has been ruthless. Like it was just incredibly ruthless. If you're not involved in that and you are on YouTube, jump onto Friendly Geordie's page and go back about two weeks or so and work your way forward to bring yourself up to speed on what's happening there. But Friendly Geordies is putting a lot of pressure behind the scenes, and by behind the scenes I mean like behind the media scenes, the mainstream media scenes around pressure for John Barilaro. We're not suggesting that he is involved in corruption, but Friendly Geordies is certainly implying that John Barilaro is involved in corruption. Whether or not that's taking place, like we've said, the mental health side of things is interesting.
Did you see the video that Friendly Geordies released 4 hours ago?
I've seen that he's released one, but I haven't watched it yet. Yeah, some of us work. Pete.
Sorry?
Some of us work.
Yeah, he went after a journalist who's apparently in the pocket of Barilaro.
Right.
And had the guy called him, and they were asking him questions after getting permission to record the thing about his connection with him, and he refused to answer any of the questions and then wanted to interview Geordie after that.
Look, I think the thing is that like Friendly Geordies Jordan Shanks has to make some decisions at the moment, because are you gonna kick a man while he's down, like taking mental health, like if he wants to win some people on his side for what he's trying to achieve, now might not be the right time to do it. So it's an interesting interplay. I think the timing of the mental health thing is very interesting, and given his colourful background, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the next few weeks.
As a quick question, what do you guys think the role or responsibility of someone like Jordan Shanks is, now that this video that he released 4 hours ago has 120,000 views? I would imagine that the majority of the people watching his channel are Australian. They're probably of voting age. He obviously has an incredible strength now at, in impacting elections and that sort of thing. What sort of responsibility does he have?
Well, he has no journalistic integrity, which is, and I say that frankly because he's not a journalist. He doesn't need to. He hasn't necessarily been through a journalism degree. He hasn't been through sort of the starting off as an intern. Putting in 1,000 copies every on every story every day, etc. Learning to edit, etc. Learning to ensure that you're presenting both sides of a story on each story. So he doesn't have that responsibility. So. Should he is a great question, but maybe that's a philosophical question. It would be great, and it would be marvelous if facts were presented as facts and not necessarily as a bit of fact and a bit of hyperbole, etc. But this is why he is popular. He is popular because he has this particular style of delivering information. So it's unfortunate. that you don't necessarily get the full picture. You're getting the slice of the picture that he is interested in putting forward. But that is the nature of a populist. I almost said journalist, but a populist individual who likes to talk about stuff.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. However, I think that the difference between a lot of commentators and Jordan is that Jordan actually has a team of people. Now, you wouldn't think that when you watch his videos. His videos are not extraordinarily well produced. He's got shadows on the background like some amateurs, and he's got just a plain white background. He just you got the microphone. He doesn't do any sort of whiz bangery. It's
but
just
he's
him
pulling up all the stories. And
but he's pulling up the stories. That's right. So he looks like he's on his own, but he's not. He has a team of people, and he is getting literally more powerful by the day. And that's interesting because he would have to be very confident. Like this to me is sort of the first time that he's going to have a major impact on Australian politics, which he's wanted to do for a while, from what I can gather. And so if he's able to pull this off, if he's able to actually gather the evidence with what he's suggesting about John Barilaro and have an impact, which it looks like that he is, that's very interesting because there's not a lot of denial coming out about about what he's accusing John Barilaro of. But yeah, that's probably as far as I'll take it. But he's not on his own. It's not him just ranting and raving into a microphone. There is a team of people, and he is now a marketing. He's even said so himself. He said I'm getting told I need to go here. I need to interview this person. I need to do this. His time is now not his own, but he's obviously enjoying what he's doing. He also on his personal webpage he does like some self-help stuff, which I've watched a few of those videos, and as much as it's great having some self-help inspiration and all that sort of stuff, he does actually say some pretty wild things. I've heard him say, Alzheimer's is linked to very stressful jobs. He doesn't have any evidence to back that up, that he's just going to announce it. So, he's going to have to watch the influence that he does have, I think. And
watch out when he starts trying to sell those $20,000, was it infrared
things to stop COVID.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see. I mean, it is always interesting when you see a personality, because it's populism. So he has a particular brand that he puts across, and people seem to respond to it. By all respects, he does it well. He does what he does relatively well.
Yeah, he's got an audience and he speaks to them. I feel young when I watch his videos. Like I feel, because it's so different to what I'm used to in terms of like news and all that sort of stuff. And he does present them with animations and sort of, whacked out noises here and there, like he's quite popular on YouTube. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how he plays out, it's interesting watching the new media have an influence, and the new speakers have an influence in real time.
Well, that's the weird thing to sort of beat this dead horse. It's so interesting to see journalists. Another example is Tim Pool, right, in the US. He has become huge. He's getting like half as many views as Joe Rogan's podcast now on YouTube. So he's making like $50,000, $100,000 a month from ad revenue. And all he does is do a podcast and videos talking to the screen, reviewing news articles from news sites. And that's his thing. But so it's so interesting to see that the majority now seems to be moving away from traditional media and following individuals. And it's on their behalf that they kind of get the news now. They get the interpretation of the news through a third party. And so it's very interesting to think about the ethics of that, especially with social media and our polarization that's occurring now through using Facebook and creating these echo chambers, everything like that. So it's going to be so interesting to see how like this election in the US and then the next Australian one plays out with these kinds of guys, on both sides, just becoming bigger and bigger and more popular.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It sounds like we need to have you back on the show, Pete, and have a little discussion about that. That'd be great fun. All right, that was good fun. Now we're getting towards the end of the Daily Show,
yes.
Pete. It's meant to be very quick. Now to do the wrap up, Jake, you tell us what's about to happen.
We are about to go through the Australian quiz about Australian things from an Australian, and that's me.
And we're just going to do eight questions for you, Pete. 8 questions, okay?
Yeah, I was worried you're going to put me on the podium and be like, you got to give us the questions.
Yeah, no, you have to give us the answers.
What's the first question, Pete? So we'll go one question we'll go one question each for a couple of rounds. So Pete, your first question: how does the second verse of "Advance Australia Fair," our Australian national anthem, how does that begin?
Hold on a second. Let me just Google it.
No speed Googling allowed.
Australians all let us.
No, we're going to be here for 30 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
I honestly don't
beneath
know.
our radiant Southern Cross. Greg,
Yes.
how many joeys can a kangaroo have at one time?
One
on,
Joey's?
How many did you say?
One Joey's.
No, they're able to have 3 joeys at any one.
Is that like a
time.
maximum? Are there anomalies? Yes. Like, can you go 4? There's never been a kangaroo that's gone 4.
They have the ability to. They can give birth to one. It goes into the pouch, gets on the nipple, starts growing. They give birth to another one. As that one in the pouch has grown to a sort of medium size, it's still in the pouch, but there's a little one in there again eating or drinking the milk. Then the big one gets out of the pouch and they repeat the process.
Right.
So
Okay.
they're like
This is a rapid quiz.
Worse
This is a
than
rapid
rat.
quiz.
Okay. Fair enough.
Ruining the rapid quiz.
All right.
But there's very, very important information. I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thanks for rounding that out.
Biologists.
I think that's 1-0. Yeah.
It's nil.
Oh no, it's
actually.
0-0. Yeah.
So to Pete, in what year did Australia get their first, our first of many, of only one, female prime minister?
2012.
Incorrect. No, 2010. It was 2010.
Close.
Julia Gillard. Greg.
Yes.
How many states does Australia have?
Just take the total minus the territories and you got it.
5?
Incorrect. It was 6.
6.
Stop giving him the easy ones.
Dear me. I need to. You'd think if running this podcast, you would think A, I would know something about kangaroos, and B, be able to rattle off the states and territories pretty quick.
There's a little Greg over on the side there that's still on the teat.
Okay, to be fair, also, I thought I misinterpreted Jake and mine's conversation earlier. I thought we were both going to ask you the questions. I didn't realize I was on the podium. So I've done. As soon as he launched into the question, I was like, right, okay, it's actually on me. All right, anyway, that's fine.
Fantastic. Well, next up, is it Greg or is it Pete?
It's
It's
Pete.
me.
Yes, Pete. Why is the emu and kangaroo depicted on Australia's Commonwealth coat of arms?
Because they're good tucker.
They are good tucker. They all good tucker. But
Can I have a guess?
Oh yes, yeah, for the steal.
Is
Greg,
this
for the
something?
steal.
I don't know if this is true, but is this because they can't go backwards?
Yes, that is
Yes.
said to be the reason. It is true. It's a bit of a truism. So it's true that they can't. Neither of them can go in reverse. Neither of them go backwards. However, that's not necessarily the reason why they're iconic Australian animals.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, the truism is kind of fun because, Australia, we never go backwards except when we do.
Yeah.
So
Wait, the correct answer is because they're Australian animals. Well, no, there's no bears in there, man. Like,
You get a half point.
Too true. Greg,
What?
what is the town Coober Pedy famous for?
Cooper Petey?
Yeah, Coober Pedy.
I'll hand it over to Pete.
For the steal.
Cheese.
But what else?
Wine.
underground hotels.
Yeah. Oh, well, just underground housing. Yeah.
Because
And
it gets like 50 degrees Celsius there, right? During
it
summer.
does. It does, absolutely. And very dry. Final two questions. What is the name of Australia's largest working cattle station? I'm gonna give this it's multiple choice. You ready? Ruby Plains, Anna Creek Station, Brunette Downs, or Drover's Run?
Brunette Downs.
They all sound pretty legit.
It's
Hannah's Hut.
Anna Creek Station.
Liam's Tunnel.
Crocodile Dundee Park. Yeah.
Yeah. Final question, Greg.
Yeah.
What? This was something that we discussed on the show a couple of weeks ago.
All
so
right.
it
Yep.
should be
That's
fresh
even
in your
worse.
mind.
Yep.
Are you ready? Okay, here we go.
Haven't got any of these right yet.
What do you call a group of platypuses? What is the collective noun?
Platypi.
No.
Oh.
A something of platypuses.
A murder.
The group word.
A group.
Nailed it.
I mean, technically,
A sea of platypus.
a sea of platypus. No, it's a paddle of platypuses.
Who makes this stuff up, man? Like a murderer of crows in a
Biologists.
parliament of owls. What the hell, man?
I like it. It's
They'll
good.
never get used.
Well, except when they do.
We
At
only
least
use,
you
what
know
is
what
it,
you're talking
a
about.
herd of wolves and a pack of cows, right?
Yeah. I just imagine a couple of scientists sitting on a hill just going, a paddle. That's a good one. Put it in the book.
It rhymes.
All right. Look, thank you to our guest tonight, Pete Smissen from the Aussie English podcast. Thank you for joining us tonight, Pete. And Jake, once our listeners have finished plastering their face all over their own novelty checks, what would you like them to do?
I would love it if they subscribed. And then if they rated and then later reviewed us, because rating and reviewers does help other people to find us.
And if you'd
I can test that.
How much have you rated us, Pete?
I've rated you like once, twice.
Yeah.
No, 3 times.
No, but what amount of stars? Are you the 4-star? Because there's one 4-star.
Hate the guests, especially the bald ones.
If you'd like to share the love, you can do so by telling your friends, families, and foes to head to thepouchthepodcast.com, where they can choose their favorite podcast player of choice. And please head over to the YouTube channel, which is just the Pouch the Podcast. Subscribe there. Do all that sort of stuff. Our most viewed video by far is me having a sneezing fit on the blooper reel. We're up to about 600 views. It's getting like 100 views a day. And I've been
sharing it everywhere.
All right, Pete, thank you so much for joining us. And Jake, I'll speak to you again, well, tomorrow night, but not really.
See you next week.
See you, boys.
Yeah.